Welcome everyone, this is Denny and Karl with Get Wisdom, and today we're going to continue with the channeling series, which is going into its, third year now. I can't believe it, but I think that's where we're at.
Either.
and today's subject is a fellow by the name of Aaron Russo. And people from the truther or libertarian bent or freedom movement, if you will, from years back will probably remember this fellow. Not only for his activities there in politics and whatnot, but also from him being a club owner in Chicago and a manager for singers and movie entertainment folks, and also a movie producer. And the movie that really sticks in my mind that Aaron Russo was a producer on was The Rose, which was I guess somewhat of a fictionalized account of the life of Janis Joplin. So that's Aaron Russo. You will have seen a bio before this part of the video starts. And so we have 6 questions for Aaron Russo today. And before I invite Karl to speak, I just want to say I found out about this guy maybe about 12, 15 years ago, somewhere in there. And he always struck me as someone that I wish I had met in person. He had a very naturally positive attitude about things. It wasn't forced, and he was very optimistic about the freedom movement in the United States, which I found so refreshing because it was a hard area to get into and retain a positive mood or a positive outlook on things. But I always found him to be just a remarkable guy. The other thing he was famous for, before I turn it over to Karl, was a movie called Freedom to Fascism, which was a documentary that he did after his more popular mainstream movies that he did. And this was a groundbreaking film because he really did establish the fact that there was no law obligating Americans to become taxpayers or to file income tax. And he really wrung that issue out thoroughly and made a documentary on it. And it was a groundbreaking film in many, many ways, and it actually made it into the mainstream theater circuit for a little while, although not entirely successfully. So with that, I'd like to invite Karl to give us a bit of an introduction about channeling in general, and maybe around these topics, for his valuable input on this before we get started. So thank you, Karl. Thanks for joining us today.
You're very welcome, and thanks to you and others who are watching this. This is an exploration, an earnest attempt to find the truth of things, and we probe in different ways with different types of people. This individual, I don't have any conscious recollection of any awareness about him. Obviously, I knew the mainstream entertainers that he was associated with and so on, but one doesn't always appreciate their retinue, their business side, who are organizing and arranging things and doing the promotion and the managing, and often critical in fostering a career. Some of the entertainers are kind of quirky people who wouldn't be able to mount a career unaided. So these people are key, and someone with this profile of wanting higher truth about things is also quite unusual. And we're seeing more and more why that is as we probe into what the lives of some of the people we've come to know have really been about. It's very much the case we come in to do light work, to try to improve humanity. And often to do that, you've got to start looking at what's wrong and hopefully have something to offer, and not just complain, but have an insight about how something could be better. So anyone who's doing that and showcasing a different perspective to wake people up is really a change agent in the making. They may not be successful. There have been many who have tried and failed. They didn't get traction, or they were taken out. or they were simply sidelined and ignored and their message rejected for any number of reasons. And many times they're manipulated and have some sort of tragic thing happen. They lose their way. They're encouraged to become corrupted in various ways. And certainly a lot of people in entertainment end up in that kind of a cul-de-sac where they're addicted to something, where they engage in something lurid and it hurts their reputation and they kind of never come back from it. And a lot of those things are orchestrated. So I don't know what to expect here. So this will be an interesting outing for me. I don't know much about anything that's going to be probed and what might be forthcoming. But to do this, I need to be at least a little bit informed about who I'm talking to, because as members of the divine realm who we channel in this series are subject to all the rules of the divine realm in interacting with humans in the living. You might think if we can pierce the veil, then all the secrets will come pouring forth and we'll learn everything we've ever wanted to know about any subject, and the whole world will be transformed because we'll have the keys to the kingdom and we'll know how to do everything miles better. And that just ain't so. And the major reason is we're supposed to make things happen here. We're supposed to do it. We're supposed to do the heavy lifting. And the scholarship and the exploration and investigation when things get out of alignment in some way, and figure out how to make it better and then do it. We can ask for divine help, but that comes in subliminally. It comes in from within us through our deep subconscious mind via the higher self or creator directly. And we think of it as our own idea at the time, and that's divine support. Right. It's really to make us do things better, and we're supposed to be doing things better. So when we go around the system and go right to the divine realm and say, hello, here we are, come and answer all these questions for us, there will be cooperation up to a point, but when they think we're overreaching, that there's something more we need to do to be ready for the information and to be in a position to warrant sharing new information with us. There's lots of rules of engagement.
Right.
So we get what we get, and it's a function of our readiness, our integrity, having a high purpose to know the information.
Right.
And they'll be looking into the future and seeing what comes from the revelations.
Yeah.
And if there's something that could trigger too many people that they're not ready to hear, it might be withheld for that reason.
Right.
Maybe Denny and I are tough enough to take it, but maybe not a larger audience as yet, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we're going kind of incrementally and building on what's come before.
Right.
So factor that in, that we will get an advancement in various ways. And it's going to take a piecing together of a lot of voices, talking about a lot of similar frustrations and tragic circumstances and missed opportunity and failings, as well as the triumphs.
Right. And I'm glad you brought this up, because in these series of questions, I draw heavily upon previous channelings from other beings in the light, where we touched on the same topics that I'm going to bring up with him, because I know that when he was living, he was very interested in it. You know, one being 9/11, the other being the relationship between ETs and government, which, I mean, that wasn't really ET contact issues, really wasn't his forte. I really don't know what he thought about that, but the fact is he knows a lot about it now as a light being. And so these subjects that he was interested in, now that we know that they involve the ET contingent from our previous work, I'm bringing that stuff up so he can flesh it out. And I pose the questions and the context for the questions, knowing that he may not be able to answer everything that I want to know or we want to know, or I'm trying to think on behalf of our audience too, for things that are kind of like, well, maybe gray areas, including people who have followed the series for a while. Not only people new to the series, but people who have followed the series for a while, as we try to create this more complete picture of the human situation. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's very pertinent to the questions that we're going to be using today.
Well, it is very true that if we don't conceive of a certain possibility, it's much less likely that will be mentioned. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the idea of an extraterrestrial involvement in something likely won't be discussed unless we are all over that subject to begin with. We've seen it in action many times in places. And so it's in the back of our minds, if not explicitly stated in a question. And that's the only way it'll come up. So I've done channeling for years and would ask about all sorts of weird happenings and phenomena and problems that we struggle with as human beings. And I would be told things like consciousness. There's, it's a negative consciousness, blah, 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 And it turns out it was really an extraterrestrial influence perturbing us in our society. They could not tell me that because I hadn't thought about that possibility. They're not allowed to lead us. So I would get, I get a clue essentially about it.
Yeah.
They talk about some aspect of it, but not reveal the larger truth of it yet, because I wasn't ready to learn that or discover that.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of be on the brink of discovery and kind of formulating the idea, and then they will confirm it and maybe elaborate on it a bit more for you.
Yeah.
So you got to do your homework.
Right. And then the other thing too, which we've discussed many times as a prequel to, doing the channeling itself, is the fact that, he's a pretty recent figure. So it's not like all of his associates are long gone. So there's things that they may refrain talking about because it could have an adverse influence on, his family members or people that were close to him, business associates, or even perpetrators that were involved with him, where they could be harmed by the information revealed. So the divine realm is not going to give you and me information in a channeling series that's going to go public that could basically hurt somebody, whether we perceive them on the victim or the perpetrator side or not. That's not what they're about, and they're not going to help us target anyone.
Yeah. And they don't want us targeted either.
Right.
They
Right.
don't want us. They don't want to be a party to relaying information that could get us in serious difficulty.
Right.
So that's another handicap. They're not allowed to cause harm. Well, what happens when you bring forth deep, dark, hidden truths about struggle and all sorts of powerful forces that are clashing? Someone gets hurt in the end with that sort of stuff going on. And
Right.
The more you talk about it and give ammunition to one perspective versus another and so forth, the more consequences ensue.
Right.
And in all of that, there is a thread of karma taking stock, holding people accountable for everything that takes place. And it goes on record. And in the future, that karmic responsibility will revisit those participants, and those who do well and are helpful and help to raise everyone up will have some benefit and some reward from doing that. But anything that is premature, that ends up causing a backlash and ends up creating false hope and expectations, and then a great falling out and suffering and pain and so forth, there will be a price to pay for all of those things. This is one of the forces of the universe. It's the law of cause and effect. and it's relentless and it's dispassionate. It has a life of its own. And if you want help to overcome it, you can go to the divine realm. But we all too often don't think of that, and we don't understand the karmic forces out and about either. We don't think in terms of those things. We just see a literal surface interpretation of life. So there's a lot more to an interchange like this than one might think.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad we covered these things. Okay. Well, with that, maybe we should go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. So
okay.
I'll do my best.
Okay. Thanks.
I'll just need a moment to get in the right state of consciousness to tune in and set up safety around the work, which is quite important because many channelers are used to talking to a certain voice they believe is an exalted figure, maybe a divine figure of some kind, an archangel, or maybe a benevolent extraterrestrial, or an ascended master of some sort. And they're being duped. They're not talking to those sources. They were naive about the need for safety, did not ask for divine protection, and got to talking with a source, a consciousness that stepped forward to engage with them. This happens routinely. The extraterrestrials who are here and working against us constantly monitor everything that goes on intuitively, and they want to control it. So this is a big risk factor in doing this kind of work. You really need divine oversight and protection. So I go through Creator of all that is to connect me to the target, and then to keep that sacred and protected from any outside interference. That's how I go about this.
Okay.
So it just takes me a moment to get that in place, and then we'll see what this gentleman can tell us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is Aaron Russo speaking.
Thank you for joining us. Did you transition successfully? Was your death due to what we would understand as natural causes, or were you targeted?
I was targeted, but my death was caused by karma as much as any outside interference of that sort. All who are in the public arena are targeted. All who are not in the public arena are targeted. You who listen to these words are being targeted at this very moment if you turn away and go back to your screens and engage with media, electronic devices. You will be beamed with subliminal messages to program you, to manipulate your thoughts, and to instill false beliefs of all kinds within your being, designed to capitalize on your leanings one way or another. There is a one-size-fits-all message to create divisions, but fuels both sides opposing one another. This is a very clever construct where you can listen to one message that finds home in the hearts of all who tune in. It will appeal to both sides of the argument, and each will believe they are hearing truth, and it will resonate for them. This was done to me as well, but I was very resistant and remained quite independent much of the time. No one is perfect in standing strong and being invulnerable to this kind of vicious and malicious manipulation of personal sovereignty. It is a violation of the first order, ethically, morally, and even legally. My transition was accordingly difficult because of the karma catching up with me and causing discord within the body. And this was in part the pressures I was under, engaged in many controversial activities and receiving a significant pushback from many directions, wanting to constrain things, wanting to slow me down, wanting to disrupt my life, and most of all, to hinder my work, my productivity, and squelch the message I wanted to bring forth, whatever it might be. I was a change agent, as you were discussing before reaching me directly. This was my role. This was my mission in coming down. And I succeeded in many ways compared to the average human being, but did fall short of what I had hoped. This is not at all unusual because no one has made the key difference yet to turn the tide in favor of humanity. You are spiraling downwards. If you do not know this, you are not paying attention. If you are oblivious, you are being numbed into non-existence. It is time to use your eyes and ears and open your mind a bit to possibilities, maybe not to your liking, but necessary for your continued survival. This is our hope in your reaching out to us, that my message can now be sharpened and focused more keenly in service to the truth, which is the light and all it manifests.
Okay, thank you. In your early life, you owned and managed a nightclub called Kinetic Playground in Chicago. And then you were active in the entertainment world as a manager and film producer. What did these experiences teach you, and how did they prepare you for what you did later in your life?
This was very helpful to me and very instructive. It launched me functionally as a mover and shaker of a sort. This prepared me for dealing with people at a high level in making things happen. Corralling individuals, getting them focused and engaged on a project is never easy. And particularly when people are of a wildly independent nature and have personal and sometimes selfish needs, it is not easy to get them to surrender to the needs of schedules and the needs of the business side, to meet deadlines, to adhere to agreed contracts and obligations, and particularly when there is an undercurrent of manipulation to undermine those very individuals and their effectiveness. This is quite a lot to juggle at one point in time. And this prepared me for all of my life, because that is what everyone is doing who wants to succeed. Life is designed to suppress you, to minimize you, to frustrate you, to diminish you, and limit your reach, and keep you from being successful. You are trained to be mediocre. You are trained to be ordinary. You are trained to have low expectations. And you are discouraged from being creative all along the way by the institutions you live with and among. This is life on earth. It is intended to be this way. And everything is accepted as the status quo because it is all you have known. You accept what you see around you as ordinary and normal, when nothing is ordinary and nothing is normal. This is simply the relativity of experience in action. What you are immersed in, you feel is the normal environment. It is all you know because it is all you can do and experience. It is the choice left to you by those who orchestrate things and control things and make them happen. To engage in creative endeavors, as I was involved with, is an arena where one can break the mold. The pressure is very much present in all who make the attempt to do something new and different. This is for the soundest of business reasons, at a minimum. Such enterprises are rewarded greatly with dollars if you can entertain people with something they have not heard before, but see as valuable or feel as enjoyable. Bringing the artists who create music and performance to the public is a noble undertaking, because all of music has the potential of upliftment, enrichment, and encouragement. That is its reason for being. It is the reason you can hear and feel and respond to music in the first place. It is a divine capability, and often a divine instrumentation of the love permeating the universe from the one consciousness creating it all. It can be perverted, it can be thwarted, it can be throttled down and diminished, but nonetheless, the spark is there, the outline of possibility is there. Someone who tries and fails has at least tried. That impulse is depicting the divinity within each human being. If what comes out is warped and distorted and falls short of what is possible, that is due to an overlay of corruption. This was the quagmire I spent my life navigating, wanting to bring forth greatness of the many talented people I interacted with and enjoyed assisting, and wanting to bring forth their truth, the truth of the joy living within them, and what they could say to the world and help the world to feel because of their talent, focusing the divine love in fresh, new ways. This is the essence of the creative arts. and is the reason for it to be. All who participate contribute to that effort, knowingly or unknowingly, doing it simply through instinct, through their innate connection still to the divine within them and to their soul and in the divine realm. They will be imparted with great beauty and the wisdom of guidance in expressing their talent. The role of the entrepreneurial manager and promoter is to shepherd this possibility into fruition and raise up humanity in the doing. Those who excel are following a divine path and not totally seeing the dollars as their only motivation. Such individuals never get very far. And in the bargain, if they fail, will take others down with them. When all are working together for a divine purpose, even when not stated, and even when not appreciated consciously by the participants, what happens will nonetheless be divine. I was working on that wavelength and making the attempt to do work of greatness all along the way, not fully realizing that I was working for the Almighty in wanting that to happen. But this is what we mean by the alignment of souls in service to love. Love can be felt many ways and many levels. Loving a tune, loving a rendering of a particular song one likes is a form of love and not necessarily thought of as divine love. But that is the origin of the melody and the lyrics and the possibility that you can respond to them by having your heart stirred and the emotions rising within, and may even be brought to tears by a poignant performance. This is the God force within you coming forth and showing its great depth, which is awesome and can be an overwhelming experience at times when one fully opens oneself to the energy and sees the contrast between that majesty and what it is reacting in response to. All of life needs a reason to be and a purpose. The giving and receiving of love is the highest of exchanges. When one operates on that wavelength, this is when miracles can happen.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us about your interest in Janis Joplin, your production of the movie The Rose, and the plight of musicians like Janis in today's world?